Hello, I'm Tim Beggins, president of Elk Trading Company. In this week's top news for natural gas. Number one, in the US, President Biden has enacted a law that will ban new offshore oil and gas drilling in US coastal waters. Number two, Russian gas transit through Ukraine has ended with the new year. Number three, JERA has enacted a global institute think tank to monitor market conditions and trends. And number four, the rest of the world. Mozambique has been rocked by political violence post-election. Let's take a look at the natural gas continuation chart, which is up 7% today on prices, up to 359 currently today. This is in reflection of the cold Arctic outbreak that has now descended and dropped Arctic temperatures as far south as northern Oklahoma and will be pushing east as we get through the week, all the way over into Virginia. So as you can see with the natural gas, this is the February chart. This is for natural gas. You can see that we're currently trading at 358.90, up 23.6 cents, erasing much of the losses that we saw on Friday and trying to move forward as this colder air descends into the US. This is a reflection of a change in the end of season storage report so that we could see that funds are now trading with a lower total natural gas in storage at the end of the season. We'll look to see the daily pivots. Currently, our next resistance level is at 3805 and above that 392.90. Let's take a look at the March chart. And March, similar pattern here, erasing much of the losses on Friday, still not pushing much further above Friday's range. In this case, it's still an inside bar chart. All right, so let's take a look at the weather. The Arctic air continues to pool in eastern Siberia and pushes it across the globe into northern Canada, which is now making its way into the United States. This will continue at least for the next 10 days. We look at the charts in particular here, we can see that this cold Arctic air is blasting down through the Great Lakes and then pushing further east. And we continue to see volleys of cold air at least through the next 10 to 14 days. Let's take a look at the ice cover. The ice cover is western part of Hudson Bay is completely covered up. James Bay is mostly covered, but the eastern side of Hudson Bay still has not covered with ice. We are seeing a lot of snow cover now in the United States, all the way through from Colorado into Pennsylvania and parts of New England. Let's take a look at the global picture. As you can see, ice continues to build across the Arctic in places around Greenland and around Hudson Bay. We'll be continuing to watch this northern approaches to Hudson Bay. Once this completely freezes over, that eastern side of Hudson Bay will cover with ice, and that will give us a pathway straight into the northeastern part of the US. Let's take a little bit of a focus in on the Great Lakes themselves, which continue to be a block to most Arctic air. As you can see right now, for the Lake Michigan and Lake Superior, currently the Great Lakes are covered with about 22% of ice. And at this stage, it'll continue to grow with this cold Arctic air. Once the Great Lakes do cover up with ice, this will continue to allow Arctic air to descend further south into the United States. Speaking of the US, let's take a look at what's going on today. Cold air has descended as far south as Houston, Texas, where we are currently, and now pushes across much of the United States, about 3/4. This will continue to bring cold Arctic air south as we progress through the week, especially into the northern part of the US, in Northeast, Mid-Atlantic states, and New England. As we move further into next week, another blast is scheduled to arrive. Again, focus mostly on the Midwest over into the Northeast and parts of the Southeast now. And then looking forward, another pool of cold Arctic air is forming for that third week. So we'll have to keep a careful eye on that because that will dictate where prices go and where we would see end of season storage levels. Turning to Europe, Europe has fairly cool weather today, but will start to warm up a little bit as we progress through the week. Most of the cold Arctic air stays in either Russia or Scandinavia. We start to see some cooler weather in the Alps around the weekend and into next week, but overall, it's not as bad as the US. Let's take a look at the wind power in Europe. Currently, wind, as of yesterday, covered about 28% of the electricity needs in Western Europe, with Germany receiving 51.6% of its electricity needs from wind. Turning to Asia, Asia continues to be fairly normal at this stage. Still, we see the cool Arctic air building in eastern Siberia and inner Mongolia, keeping temperatures quite cold in parts of Korea and the mountainous regions of Japan. But we don't see too much of the way of below normal temperatures in the eastern provinces of China at this time. We just see about 1 or 2 days as we go through this 2 week forecast. Let's take a spotlight on ERCOT. Grid conditions this morning with the cooler temperatures descending into Texas. What we saw was power storage, the batteries, supplied upwards of 2,700 megawatts of power as we saw the wind start to die down and solar was still trying to climb up. So looking again at natural gas for the February spot contract, prices currently right now trading 360. We'll look to see if we can continue some of this momentum to the upside as the forecasts continue to call for cold Arctic air throughout much of the United States. Let us know your thoughts. Please hit that like and subscribe button below. Thanks for listening. We'll see you soon.